All right, you one percenters, listen up. This video is for someone that has a Collins 51J. It could be dash one, dash all the way up to dash four. But why is the AM broadcast band so bad? I don't know why they dumbed it down, but it's dumbed down. Now, with an AM broadcast receiver, not just AM, I'm talking AM broadcast. When you hold the radio in your hand or you have it on the desk, the first thing, if you're into it, into AMDX, or just how good the AM broadcast band radio is, you have stations that you know are low power that are on during the day, or might be in another state, and you can still get them on a good radio. So you tune on. Now this radio was only getting the local strong stations and not very well. So I kept thinking about it, and I went looking, and I only found a few months ago, I found someone mention why the AM broadcast band was so bad. And the person said the two coils, the two tunable coils that are on that rack, and that the pistons move in and out. Well, here's what's wrong with those coils. They don't have enough turns on them, but in order to get them to tune, they put a large capacitors on them. Now, somebody's been in this radio in the front end on the AM broadcast band, and they changed capacitors. I've been following what they did, and I stayed with it. Now, when you turn to band one on this radio, let's forget all the other bands. When you turn to band one, which is the AM broadcast band, the tube suddenly gets less voltage. Well, not only that, the front end, the RF tube only gets less voltage. Not only that, the bias changes, and it has a new plate bypass capacitor. And that I saw that. I'm like, could that be bad? I had trouble finding it, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. And that turned out to be the problem. Now, this radio, when you fix all the problems, it'll let you hear the local strong stations, and it'll let you hear the carriers of the weaker, what would you call them, low power stations. It's not going to let you get the low power stations that you could get with a good transistor radio. That's the level of the AM broadcast band on this radio. This radio is basically, where it shines, it has super great calibration, and it's a dual conversion on certain frequencies. On AM broadcast, it's triple conversion because they were doing something bogus. On band two, it's only single conversion, which is total bullshit because that's the 80 meters. So you're on 80 meters, and you really don't need dual conversion. But they got you thinking, well, it's the dual conversion radio. 180 meters, it's single conversion. There's a lot of snarky crap that went on with this radio. And this thing was $450. The person has sprayed it with different things. That's what was wrong with the band spread. Was it had been sprayed so many times. All the contacts were jet black. I spent days in there, a little at a time, with an eraser, and I got all that working with the AM broadcast band. But I want to show you the steeping. I noticed. Here's my tester again. Wow, this is really weird. Okay, here it is. When you press this, it'll blink twice sometimes. Oh, the light, the stupid lights in the. All right, it's only blinking one time, but look at this resistor. It looks like a resistor. It's a capacitor. Let's get the light back. It looks like a log of shit. And I went looking. I couldn't even find these on the internet. I know years ago, these were in different charts. They showed these capacitors. But this is a .01, and it's slightly leaky. Now, where I started getting suspicious was I had my meter on. I was measuring the plate voltage to the tube. And it's not a cheap meter, and it's digital. And when I put that on, the stations disappeared. I'm like, come on, no way. So I start thinking, well, let me look at the schematic, and I noticed this .01 capacitor there. So when you go to band 1, it has a new plate resistor and a new, I don't know if it's on the grid or the screen, but in other words, they dumbed down the RF tube in band 1 for whatever reason. Maybe this radio would break into oscillation. I don't know why, but I'm telling you, this radio should be avoided. If you ever think about DXing AM broadcast band, avoid it. Now, I found messages on the guy, gee, I wonder why more people don't use the Collins 51J to DX. I'm going to tell you why it sucks. And I did it on one of the videos, but I'm telling you why it sucks. Those two coils in the front end, the pistons go in and out. They have very few turns for AM broadcasts, but they added a giant capacitor across them. So they will tune the AM. If you tune the slugs from the top, you can peak in a station, right? But not like it should. They took the Q of the coil and killed it, and then they have a separate voltage and a plate resistor, and I think it might be a screen and a bypass that switches in when you're just on the band 1. But I just wanted to tell you that, and I put this back up on the bench. I'm like, you know what? There's no way they sold a radio that was this crappy. It's crappy, but in other words, it's set up for ham bands, and the AM broadcast band was just like an afterthought. Now I would avoid myself. Now I would avoid an R390 because as I'm looking, I never noticed anybody mention, yeah, an R390 is pretty good for AM DX. Never read that passage. So on the R390, is it dumbed down? And someone says, oh, I have one, it works really good. Tell me how you know it works really good. How do you know about the sensitivity? See, each area I move into, I immediately look for low power stations. And if the radios that I own can get those stations. And that lets you know right away that's sensitivity. We don't need selectivity on the AM broadcast band. We want sensitivity. And if you can't pick that station up and enjoy it, that radio sucks. It's made to get just the local strong stations. But like a GE Super Radio, all right, not only does it get the local strong stations, it goes past picking up the carriers of the low powers. You can actually hear what the person's saying. You can actually enjoy the program. That's why it's a super radio. I showed you that. I told you about those. It's got that extra front end RF that's tuned. It's really set up right. They know what they're doing. Where I got an idea, Collins didn't have engineers that really understood the broadcast band. And Hellcrafters does, and National does, and there might be some other companies that came along later on that when they give you a good shortwave radio, they're giving you a good AM broadcast band. Now, I hung at the shortwave store, and people would buy a JRC or an ICOM R71A or a Kenwood 5000 it was, R5000. People would call the store up and say, look, I bought like the best radio you have, and it sucks on AM broadcasts. So the woman that owned it had a way of saying, well, to prevent overload or whatever, they tuned that band down. It was a lie. Most of them use bandpass filters for each band of the ham radio has when you switch the I won't say the band switch. When you change bands, the microprocessor kicks in and out using diodes. These bandpass filters, and they're set for the center of each ham band. So when you're in between the ham bands, you have less gain on the radio. I learned all this too late. I have a whole closet full of R71As. I thought they were great radios, but they're really not for shortwave listening. They pulled some quick ones on everybody, and they got away with it. So if you've been following what I'm doing, I got that Hellcrafters. I hated that thing, but it turned out to be, it's just a really good radio. And I started looking at the Hellcrafters SX100, and I noticed all the IF cans and BFO cans are real close together. So if you had to recap those, which you're going to have to, that's going to be harder than doing the SX42. But in my mind, I said, let me do a video and explain to you what they did to the AM broadcast band. When you go to band 1, the voltage drops on the RF tube. And it has two coils that they've killed the Q on them on purpose. And besides getting new bias and less voltage, it has a separate bypass capacitor off the plate. And if that goes bad, band 1 won't work, but all the other bands will. That's what I had. I was getting stations, but I couldn't hear the carriers of the basically of low powers in the area. Now I can hear the carriers, but I can't. Avoid this radio if you want to do AM DX, not AM broadcast DX, because if you say AM DX, AM is amplitude modulation. They use that AM up on the ham bands. That's the type of modulation. But we were raised at, when you say AM, you mean AM broadcast, but AM is a type of modulation. FM is not a. FM is a band because we just say the FM broadcast band. But FM, you can have FM signals up on higher frequencies. That was a big breakthrough with a guy. He was an engineer, and I started telling him you can have FM or AM up in the VHF band. And he's looking at me and he's saying to me, I'm crazy. I said, you know, a television, the picture is AM. And the sound is FM on old radio, on old television sets. He's looking at me like, you're crazy. I said, no, I'm not. I said, they used FM because if the picture gets a lot of ghosts and shadows, you can still enjoy the program. And the picture is transmitted on an amplitude modulation in the same frequency range. This guy's looking at me. He's got his engineering degree. And he's arguing with me. Such a basic fact. Well, I don't know about that. Because we were talking about police scanners he was selling. And I just said to him, is the police scanner, those new frequencies that we're starting to use, is that FM modulation or AM? And he just looked at me like, and this is what started it. And I'm starting saying, you can have FM at a higher frequency, but it takes more bandwidth. But it's clearer. Now with a police radio, you might want the voice to be a lot clearer than other things. What's wrong with this? Oh, this has been bodged. Look at that. Somebody, this radio, it just, so many fingers have been in this radio. But they broke the stud here, and they have a little nut and bolt here. I don't know if I'm in the frame. Yeah. This thing's been sprayed with WD-40 and Deox, the whole thing. And it's all gooey and sticky. And I got to where I wanted to get to. This is a $450 resurrection. That's all this comes down to. But I just wanted to tell you, avoid this radio if you like broadcast, AM broadcasts. It is unique the way they switch how they get dual conversion, the mixers in this thing. And every mixer you put in a radio back in those days made more noise. So you can disconnect the antenna on this radio and you still have a rushing noise. And you have to get enough signal to go past the noise the radio makes itself. And there's people, they never notice any of this stuff. And there are other people that would avoid this radio and get the R390. I don't know. I never owned an R390. I don't want to own it. It's called a box of problems. This thing has gears and cams. I showed you the top of this radio. And I did stuff. I tried to show you things that other people don't show you on the videos. And I went for this thing. I kept reading and reading. I'm like, all right. And then I spotted that stupid capacitor. And it's only slightly leaky. But in that type circuit, slightly leaky takes away signal. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. But it was blinking. It was blinking twice. Okay. Oh, this freaking LED light. Yeah, double blink. Yeah, it's bad. See, I don't know. I don't know. That's pretty good. But, see, I hold the button and it blinks twice. I don't know what's wrong with that capacitor to do that. But I think that's it. Look at it. It's just lights in the way. Oh, this LED light, it's a little miniature light. It's really good. But I want to tell you about LED light itself, the light that comes off this light. It doesn't create scatter. In other words, you get really deep shadows when you're in here. The light doesn't bounce around as much as an incandescent. And you when you're in there with the soldering iron, if this light isn't in the right position, you can't see what you're soldering. It is good, but it's got some drawbacks. I think that's it. All right, that's it.